Durty Talk, the podcast with Bob Fryer. Keep the conversation cooler, get it on fire from the studio room and push through the wires. Learn how the brains groove and distinguished outliers. The artists you admire.
The Durty Talk podcast with my man ASPHATE, who is an amazing artist himself through the paint and the mic. How you doing, man?
Much love, man. I'm doing good out here. I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on. It's
much love.
Yeah, we first got introduced back in 2015, 16, something like that.
Yeah, I was on tour. It was 2015 was I just termed it as the East Coast tour, but at the time I was rocking with Gray Skull and Simple Steven. And I can't remember if we had just come from Philly, if we were doing Philly the next night after rocking, but you were gracious enough to play host to us.
Yeah, I actually, you guys came from, I think, Cincinnati or Cleveland.
Okay.
And I can just remember, like, after you guys left, my wife was like, so they're rappers? And I was like, yeah, and she was like, "That's not what I expected." Like I guess she expected like these, like from, like just being constantly like nonsense partying and stuff. But you guys came, we chilled, and we actually ended up just sitting down watching Juice, which I thought was pretty cool. And but like, I guess her idea of a stereotypical hip hop rapper or whatever she wants to like think of was like broken, which I thought was great because like you guys just came and chilled and then just like hung out and it was like real calm, very respectful, and I was worried about my dogs jumping on you guys. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that I do think there's a sector of rappers, particularly if you're on the novice end of things, where being obnoxious, staying up at all hours of night, and forgetting that you're a guest in someone's home could actually be the MO.
Yeah.
It just wasn't ours because we've been around the block a few times. So every night isn't the best night. So, when you have a cool host who gives you a room to lay up in, and I mean, dude, you couldn't ask for anything more in terms of hospitality and coolness and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and then me and you, I think me and you even got to chop it up down to like downstairs, like in your like your lab, your art lab. You were just really starting to kick things off at the time. Then, from what I remember, I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, no, I was.
Yeah,
and that was something I wanted to talk to you about, which was you gave me some of like I think you said words that still resonate with me to keep me moving, to understand like everybody starts somewhere. Because like I was showing you my hand styles, my tags and stuff like that, and in the I think the most polite way of saying it's not good, it was very encouraging for you to say. I was like, yeah, I understand I'm a toy, and you're like, no, man, you're a new writer. Keep practicing, keep going at it, because I think you explained when you were in Japan that they or mentioned that you said that they don't call anyone toy because it's very disrespectful, that they call everyone a new writer.
So you're talking about my man. You are talking about a story I told you.
Yes.
That does stem from me, but it's actually from Dirt.
Okay.
One day maybe you'll get to meet my homeboy Durst one. And me and Durst were painting for the first time in New Mexico, and he was breaking it down to me because he had been painting in Taipei, Taiwan.
Okay.
Yep, and he said out there they don't call them toys, they call them new hands.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so I know exactly what you're talking about, but I relay that story to people as much as possible because, especially in the graffiti writing world, it's real easy to jump right into. If you're not our crew, if you're not down with us, you're a toy type thing. Well, technically, everybody goes through that stage. Everybody goes through the stage of not quite knowing all the rules, being in gray area situations and not knowing, do I cross this line, do I cross that line, not having the necessary skills to really be able to go out there and gloat and do all that other shit. So because everybody's in that stage, we could get wrapped up in assigning some sort of derogatory term to it, or we could just realize that, dude, everybody goes through that stage, so why would I sit around talking shit about it?
Yeah, and it's funny because after that, I actually had a Pittsburgh writer message me and kind of was like, look, man, you got to do your history and do all this stuff, and I get that, I respect that, and he's like, you need to learn how to do stuff, and I was like, all right, man, well, let me come out and paint with you. I can learn, I'm not afraid to do that, like I'll meet up, and after that, it was just like, nah, he didn't want to talk to me, and I was like, well, if you want to call me out, at least be at least that's how I am. I'm like, you know what, call me out, that's fine, I'm okay with it, but bring something else to the table. You know what I mean?
You know what? So I'll speak to that real quick. So there are all different ends of the spectrum. Well, I guess the spectrum generally is only going to have maybe so many ends, but there's all different ranges along the spectrum, I should say, right? In terms of how someone would react towards a newer writer and that sort of thing. For me, I would be down to. I'm notorious for taking new writers out and that sort of thing. As long as I feel their vibe, I feel the energy, that we connect, and it's nothing conflicting with my state of being and how I normally would rock or whatever. But there is some etiquette where that's involved. So, for instance, if I was to take a new head out, that means every other head that's coming with us, they know in advance. So they can think about, damn, well, I want the risk of going out with some brand new head who they may not know when the flashlights hit the rail yard, you hit the ground first, you don't start running. You try to disappear before you become a moving target that can be seen from a distance. All these little things, someone may think to themselves, dog, I'm not coming out I've been writing for 12 years, I'm not coming out at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. to be paired up with some new hand or whatever. So number one, as a person who may even take a new writer out, you have to be concerned about who else is going to be rocking with you that you may be impacting or jeopardizing or compromising their experience by taking this new head out. So they gotta be able to do that. Number two, they gotta have the authority in that area to make such a decision.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times they are the person that's getting brought out in the first place. So for them to be like, oh yeah, hey, here's the new guy that I'm gonna bring along with him. They may have like 2 or 3 motherfuckers look at them like, who told you could bring anybody? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's that. But then there's also the rule of, a lot of people have this whole rule of, don't be very careful about spots. And actually this is something that I try to uphold as well. But people will get into this vibe where they're like, dude, if someone's a brand new writer and we were going tonight to this particular spot or that particular spot, let's not take a new writer there because we don't want to make this spot hot just yet. You know what I'm saying? We will go and take them to the abandoned building where everybody gets up, where nobody worries about anybody going over anybody's work, where there's low risk, where we can paint for 4 hours. So what I wonder is, the reason I'm going through all of this is, I wonder if that writer you were dealing with was just somewhere along the spectrum where they simply were an asshole and weren't going to be dealing with no new writer in the first place.
You know what?
Or if they had one of these other concerns.
Yeah, because I never actually thought about it that way, to be honest. And you bring a whole new perspective to it. Because, I mean, to be honest, my love for graffiti is love for graffiti. I love the culture. I love the style. It's a huge influence in my work. But I'm not part of a crew. I'm kind of like a lonely lion or something like that, and I paint where I want within reason. Like, I know not to go over someone's names and really go where I know a crew goes to, because I don't want to associate myself with someone and then end up getting drama because I'm not part of that crew. Like I understand some of the rules, the codes, and ethics behind it, but I never actually looked at it through, I guess, an actual writer's eyes and stuff. So, like, you just gave me a lot of insight.
So check this out. It's good that you say that, because so to put it in perspective, for a cat to take you out writing with them, they essentially are saying to every other person that's already embedded in the writing culture, if anyone else shows up at that yard or at that wall or that abandoned building while they're there, or if they actually happen to be going along with the mission and meeting you guys in the first place, essentially what their actions are saying are, not only do I vouch for this guy, but he's with me. So any line he crosses tonight, that's on me.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
so, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I wonder if this dude just kind of got shook. And in his mind, he was like, look, dude, I'm not the total asshole that's just going to talk shit about you from afar. I'll at least send you a message and say you need to work on shit, but I'm not going to help you work on this shit.
Yeah.
So maybe he did somewhere in the spectrum along that range. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
You know what? Like, any frustration or just agitation I had from that has gone away with you brightening that out, like, just bringing that to light, because I never thought about that. I mean, I'd say...
You could explain that.
Yeah.
You could explain it, too.
Yeah, but, I mean, who am I to tell a grown man what to explain to me and not? Like, I left the conversation. I was like, all right, well, that's cool. It is what it is, basically. You know, I wasn't like, well, fuck you and stuff like that, because I'm not that type. I'm not, I don't look for drama. Like, if somebody doesn't want to do something, I'm like, peace, it's cool. Like, I'm no fret. So you, along with your graffiti skills and knowledge, you actually, with what you're saying, what I've seen you post and share is you have color codes where you bring out the, like, youth and new writers, and you go through a whole thing of teaching them, right?
Okay, so so let's break that down a bit for the audience. Heads know me as Phate or Phate Rock from Scarce Elements Crew, also known as the Scarce Collective. That's my legal graffiti writing crew. I'll leave my non-permissive street writing crew out of the story right now, right? That crew, Scarce Elements, we collectively and generally every year, with the exception of this year, just to all the pandemonium, we generally are throwing a graffiti exhibition in Iowa every year. What that was known as starting in 2014 was Color Code. And so that was an event where every year I basically set two primary colors. The first year it was teal and orange. The second year it was magenta and cream. The third year was gray and green. But in each one of those years, I set two primary colors. I invite writers that we've painted with over the years from multiple places. And what happens is those writers they can paint whatever they want to, any imagery they like, whether it's characters, letters, anything. But their pieces and their work needs to primarily be composed of those two colors or variants of those colors.
Okay.
So when it was magenta and cream, that means they could use anything from the lightest pink down to the darkest blood maroon. You know what I mean? They could add anything from the lightest cream or beige down to like a chocolate color. You know what I mean? And so everything in between they could use, and then they get a couple of accent colors. So there were three different editions of color code of that particular event. That occurred, first one in 2014, second one in 2015. What happened in 2016 was just my crew rocked this 200-foot long wall in Des Moines. It was actually kind of it was a protest to the Dakota Access Pipeline at the time.
Okay.
Maybe we'll find a way. I'll send you a flick, and perhaps you can use it as a visual aid.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
It's this big ass wall where it's an ocean scene, and there's a refinery spilling oil into the ocean. But further down the end of this big ass wall, you see that this ocean is really just a pond that a huge kid is playing in. And the huge kid is drinking from a juice box, and the letters on the juice box say APL.
I remember seeing that you post about that, because wasn't it like a lot of like teals and blues like in that too? And I think there was like a shark swimming in there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I pay attention. I pay attention.
There's a shark. There was an abandoned ship and all that. But what a lot of people didn't know was, a lot of the city that. From their consensus, that's one of their favorite pieces that has touched that wall. But what a lot of them didn't know is that we were actually making a stand, talking for Nick rights and that sort of thing. It was a quite subtle way to get that message out. But that was 2016. So 2017 was mentor mashups, and what that was is it was a year where we weren't quite sure if color codes was going to be able to happen from an administrative standpoint, a budget standpoint, and that sort of thing. But myself and my crew have been teaching graffiti workshops here with Des Moines Public Schools for about the last 4 or 5 years at that point. Now we're going on 6, 7 years point. But so I had access to students, and I had access to students that were putting time in. I could gauge their dedication. I knew who was serious. I knew who was hitting me up asking for cans outside of class, who was putting their work in. And some of them even going in and putting the heavy work in, underground, rail yards, and all that sort of thing. So in 2017, with the event called Mentor Mashups, what that consisted of was I took, I think it was seven students that showed a lot of promise, dedication, that sort of thing. And I just paired them with someone who also was from the state of Iowa, not necessarily from our city, but was a veteran graffiti writer.
Okay.
And so those two working together to create whatever imagery they wanted. I'll provide you with some flicks of that as well, just so you have more visual aids. But that was not confined to the color combinations that we dictated. But I think that's where your mind may have been going when you were thinking about pairing the students with the with the mentors or the veteran writers. That was an event that we did. We do have a couple of other events where we go and judge like these younger kids doing some graph stuff. And then ultimately, any event that we ever have, if there's a young kid that's involved in it, the hope for that young kid is that they get to work their way up to qualifying to be in the big boys table, which is color.
Now,
they're coming in and rocking with all the heads that we're bringing from, LA, Chicago, AZ, and everywhere.
So I'm thinking of two questions right now. The one, I'm pretty sure it was you that posted it, where it had a bunch of plywood set up like on stands, and there was also tents with a DJ rock, and there was MCs going, B-boys going, right? Was that one of your events?
That was the earliest version of Color Codes. The craziest thing is we've been kind of sleeping isn't the right word, but we've been sitting on this footage from the second year, which is where the event kind of blew up. We had a B-boy event thanks to the homies, Ason and my boy Concrete, Boys by this crew, Scooter, and some of these other heads from here in town. That event was super dope because the B-boy action was almost just as grand as the graph action. Well, really it was. There were people from China and Brazil and some well-known B-boys and stuff that were coming to rock. Lil John from Avaporo was out here. So, yeah, the thing you're referencing when you're talking about the plywood being put up, that was actually the free wall and the walls that we provided for the public for those events. So when that event goes down, number one, it's invite only. Color Code is invite only. And I do that specifically because I understand the culture of and the temperament of graffiti writing, just like we were talking about earlier. Graffiti writers tend to have, a lot of us tend to be arrogant. A lot of us tend to go into other cities, and the more we enter into other turf that's not ours, we start to feel like mutants. We start to feel like, oh, we got to bomb and trash everything and destroy everything.
Yeah.
You get superpower building within you, right? Well, in our first year being that we're in Des Moines, and Des Moines isn't as developed as a lot of other graph scenes, even as a Pittsburgh, you know what I'm saying? And so it was a very big deal for us to not have the people that were invited to the event also be the people that were trashing our downtown, tearing up the city, because it would have been the last time we ever got to have the event.
Okay.
So as a result of that, to get ahead of it, I made sure to make it an invite-only event. And so it didn't matter how dope someone may be or what their stature was or whatever, but we were already set on the roster and they hit us up, dude, you got to wait till next year sort of thing. What that did is it started to create sort of a sense of ownership that the writers who worked with us did have of the event themselves. They wanted to see it go right. They wanted to see people not damage things. There's never been a fight at any of our events. Out of all of our events, there's never been even a fight. The vibe is just different just because we try to only invite the components and the ingredients to the stew that we think are going to flavor it properly. And the people that do flavor it properly, it comes back next year.
Okay.
We cover their paint, we cover their travel, we cover their hotel and all that sort of thing. We want to make it special. Color Code was all about making it special for the graph writer because a lot of times graph writers show up to an event somewhere out of state. They were told they're going to get the paint. And by the time they get there, somebody gives them a space the size of a shoebox. And they got to climb 20 feet up to get to it. And they're like, hey, that's you. But you go rock that type shit, So I wanted to reverse that and do that differently. But to do that, you have to be real meticulous about who you involve and who you include. when you're referencing the plywood, that's because we had already invited 30 people in a roster, applied and designated their spaces to particular spots on the wall, making sure that this crew isn't paired against this crew so there's no beef and there's no this or that or whatever. We had all that set, and then we put the plywood up so that the public, when they get there and they start getting antsy and getting inspired, and the kids that show up there want to paint, they got something to paint on. You know how people's minds work.
Yeah, I've been to events where they've actually put up paper on the walls, like big sheets of paper, and just covered like almost like Christmas wrap the wall, so like the artists can just go there and scribble and stuff like that. And to me, that's fun because it gets that out. And then like when we leave, maybe I scribble somewhere else or not, but not under my own name. But it's even as an artist, like when I see somebody drawing or doing something like that or painting, especially with my kids, when I start seeing them doodle, I'm like, fuck, I gotta join in too. So it's a natural feeling of like being included. And I watch so many art videos and graffiti videos at night just to get inspiration and learn new techniques for myself. There's times I just get out of bed and I go back down to my studio now and I just start drawing. And next thing I know, it's 3:30 in the morning and I got to get up soon to be with the kids. So like I get that itch. The other question I wanted to ask you about this, do you guys get the paint donated, or is that something that you got to go and buy? And like, are you getting the Montanas, the 94s, the Iron Lacs, or are you going and getting the Rustos and Krylons?
So the very first year of color codes, I really have been planning to do that for the longest, and my wife stepped in and helped me as well, because we really honestly, this household is a hip hop household. All three of us, myself, my wife, and my daughter, who's now graduating at 17, we were all part of the same b-boy crew, Force Fighters crew out of here. It's the longest active b-boy crew here in Des Moines. We were traveling and battling with each other when my daughter was very, very young. As you know, I Emcee, so I hit the road for all that sort of thing. If I were to flip and show you, you know what I'm saying, we're pretty serious about. You can see that, but we're pretty serious about the record. I
see that. I love the boom boxes. I love those boom boxes.
Exactly. So this is a hip hop household. And so as a result of it, we're always involved with some sort of event and that sort of thing. And I knew at the time I had been putting on, we were trying to put on low cost events that were high quality, showcasing each one of the four elements, focusing on one particular element. And so that series was known as Correct Flow. Correct Flow, for the first one, it was focusing on MCing, so I had my crewmate Robust from Galapagos 4, AWAR, I can't remember who else came out, and that event was free. So it was free to the public. B-boys and B-girls showed up to get down and break, but it was really focusing on the MCing. The second thing we did was an event called Break Fluid. It was the same sort of thing. MCing did happen there, but it was really focusing on breaking. And so Color Codes came about because Color Codes was going to be the third event in that series. So this was this brainchild that I had running for a bit, and I knew I wanted it to be cost almost nothing too crazy for the public to come out and see a large-scale graffiti writing exhibition here in the city of Des Moines, like they may see in other cities, but see it right here and not have to pay out the ass, not have to pay $25, $30, or something like that. So I think we ended up making like $8 or something for that first year. But in that first year, to answer your question, I had been saving up my own money over that past year or so.
Okay.
So the bonus money that I had from work, bonus money, anything else that came extra, I won't talk about taxes, but
no, don't bring that into it.
Hey, but check it out. But the bonus money that came extra from work and all that sort of thing was put towards financing this event. And so, yeah, in that very first year, it was like a birthday. I don't even celebrate birthdays, So it wasn't like a birthday present, but I remember thinking of it like a gift to myself. Dude, I want in my city where I live for all the heads I've been meeting with, for them to come here, for them to know our city, understands grafflighting and understands it's serious and has our own history, and for them to be treated in a way where, for once, the graff writer is the focus. Remember, I explained correct flow was about varying focus on each one of the elements.
Yeah.
So for this one, I wanted the graffiti writer to be the star of the show. Well, in order to do that, I knew that I basically had to finance it myself, so I didn't have to listen to anybody.
Yeah.
So when people come along and they start saying, well, you've got these people that are straight doing this and that or whatever, can't we do this instead or not do that? Well, no, and your opinion's not needed because no one asked you for financial budgeting or anything. So,
Yeah, I love when people throw their opinions in on your event, like, or if I'm doing a show and they're like, well, you should do this. Well, it's like, you know what? I'm setting it up. Your input is heard but not appreciated. So, like, just come to the event and have fun.
It could be, but it's typically not in that instance. But so that first year, I paid for all of it, and where there was any gap, my wife stepped in and helped out. And the venue that we did it at was known as the Des Moines Social Club, and they've just been into a lot of different alternative, sort of your obscure entertainment sort of thing. Any like ideas, artistic ideas that are unique or different that people come up with, they would go and holler at the Des Moines Social Club, and generally someone there would try to facilitate that or make it happen. Whether it was some sort of poetry event that may not go on anywhere else, or whether it was some sort of like vaudeville sort of show with all sorts of variety and stuff to it. They were real unique about the things that they pushed creatively. But after that first year, where I had bought all the paint, I had bought everyone's tickets, I had paid for everyone's hotels, we did all of that sort of thing. After that first year, that venue said, oh shit, we didn't know you paid for everything, dude. We just thought you ran it. We want to do it again, but we want to pay for everything, and we want you to coordinate and run the show. So thereafter, after that first instance, I got to just be in the role of facilitator, and no, I didn't have to finance things myself. But in reference to your question of the paint that was used, Flame was what we were going with. Flame Blue. I remember that first year. I think my plan was primarily Molotov, because I'm a big Molotov fan.
I love Molotov.
Yeah, I love it. It's dual pressure valve system, so it's similar to gold and that sort of thing, but not quite as expensive. And I remember at the time I was going through our Primo, and I ended up kind of getting hooked up on the wholesale side. But at the time, Dan suggested, he was like, dude, you should look into this Flame Blue. Now, don't quote me on this right now, but if I remember correctly, I feel like Flame Blue may be Molotov's economy line. That's not coming from Dan. I just can't. I remember researching something at one point. I could be wrong at this point.
Yeah, you know what? It sounds familiar because I actually went through a phase where I wanted to experiment and test all different lines of paint.
Yeah.
And I think there's Flame Black or Flame Orange or something like that, where
orange is the high pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, like I had problems with the cans, like where they would quit spraying halfway through. And I experienced the same thing with Iron Lac, and I actually emailed Iron Lac and was like, what's up with your cans, man? And I explained to them. They're like, well, if you put them upside down for a while, or maybe get them cooled. And I'm like I don't want to do this.
Now listen, I'm not going to let you sit up here and talk about our baby Flame Blue, but I will agree with you on Iron Lac shit. Check this out.
Yeah.
I stopped using Iron Lac because I remember being that same dude, Durst, that talked about the new hand thing. The guy that painted in Taiwan. He came back with that knowledge to me. Where I met him at was in New Mexico, and I'll never forget. This was, man, at this point, this was like 7 years ago. And I've told this story on our podcast, Worst Things First podcast. It's episode 1 of that, by the way, with the shameless plug. Episode 1, Worst Things.
No, plug it, please plug it.
Go back and listen to that episode with myself and Durst One. Durst One is an LA graffiti writer. He's been painting since '85. He started bus hopping out there. and he's a real cool friend of ours, and he's been at Color Code several times. But where I first met him was I had returned to New Mexico after being on tour the previous year. This year I was coming just to paint and rock a show, but it was just a singular show. It wasn't like a tour. Shout out to Saba and Parrish and TNR crew, the nation's roughest. And I'll never forget, I was painting this wall, and I had to perform later that day. And for those that don't know, if you paint for like 6, 7, 8 hours, and then you also go and you rock a show, it's a very exhausting, taxing sort of thing. You know, paint tends to like stiffen your skin and your bones and all that sort of thing.
You're right on that. I've done that.
Yeah, but beyond all that, I'm fucking I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I just came to paint. And as I'm coming to paint, here's all these heads that I know are diehard serious writers. And the way I know they're diehard serious writers is when I was on tour the previous year, doing a show there that night, was getting mad love from all the graph writers while we were performing. I'll never forget seeing people show up in the front row, and they had paint in their eye. Like you could actually see it in their eye, within their lids. They had specks of paint and stuff, dude. And so I knew that's how serious the game was there. People were showing up directly from painting at the rails to come to the show, rock with the show, and then no bullshit. We went and we bombed rails after the show.
Oh, that's sick.
That's how I knew in the Southwest that the graph scene was serious and shit, right? So fast forward another year, I'm down there painting, and I'm the only cat there from Iowa. And so heads are already like, you know, they know about the music, but they don't know about the graph writing. And so Durst, I remember him coming up, and he had a buddy with him from LA also, called Hydra. And they both rolled up. I'm painting, and all these motherfuckers that are from the scene down there started pulling these lawn chairs out and putting the lawn chairs behind me and pulling old E40s out and just sitting down. They're gonna have a seat, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm the entertainment for the day. Like they're literally 5 feet behind me as I'm painting on my wall. And I'm turning around looking at these motherfuckers pulled up and shit. You know, and I'm starting to realize that as more and more people are like, man, what kind of writers are in Iowa? I'm starting to realize that whatever I do on this day is going to set the impression for these people of what is Iowa's idea of graph? Do they understand it? Do they look at it like we do?
Yeah.
Is it worthy? You know what I mean? I started having these feelings. I'll never forget. I had to go and give myself a pep talk. You know what I'm saying? I had to go get back in the room and shit. And I was like, man, I didn't come here for these motherfuckers. I came here to have a good time.
Yeah.
Fuck these motherfuckers. I don't give a fuck about the, you know, because the whole time I'm sitting thinking about them critiquing my shit. I'll never forget. Durst and Hydra rolled up. Durst, number one, shows up everywhere looking like a construction worker. He's got a Carhartt jacket on. He's got his steel-toe boots on. He's got some rough-ass pants on, but it's because he's coming to go to work.
Yeah.
Period. Durst is the dude he's the one dude who every year he comes out to Color Codes. He travels by train. He will not take a plane ticket from me. He always travels by train so that he can fill up his bag with resto, get more paint along the way, and collect at different events, and continue on his train ride. And go
now, let me ask you about Durst real quick, if you don't mind. Is he the one that does one of the wheat paste where it has like the fox or the wolf in a hoodie?
Man, I don't think so. A fox or a wolf in a hoodie.
Yeah.
Sounds like something my crewmate Lynn One has done.
Yeah, because there's one. It's like Durlist, or you keep saying Thirst One. I'm gonna have to find the dude, and I'll message you privately and be like, hey, is this him? Because if it's who I'm thinking of, he's definitely a dope writer. Like, and I'm not saying this dude isn't, but
send it to me. Send it to me. We'll figure it out. But Durst has a real distinct style. You know, again, I'll we might have to put a bullet point checklist together, and I'll get all the visuals I gotta send you. But he's got a real distinct style. And funny enough, he appeared on, I think it was season 1, episode. It was either season 1, episode 21, or season 3, like episode 23 or something like that. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh no shit!
Little bald-headed construction worker ass. His nigga's a villain. He's a robber in the show. But anyway, here's where I'm going with it. Hold on now, because here's where I'm going with it. So, Durst and Hydra show up. Remember, I'm nervous. I'm painting. I'm on the ground level. I'm on the floor. And all I'm thinking is I got to rock this show later tonight. You know what I'm saying? And I'm setting the tone and the impression for Iowa writers and shit. These cats show up. Every other spot that's on ground level is taken. They look around. I see Durst point up at the sky. There's a spot on the roof. It's only about, for each one of them, they probably have about 12 to 15 feet wide, but they're going to have to be squatting down the entire time while on this rooftop and painting only about maybe 3.5 to 4 feet tall. So not ideal circumstances, particularly for someone, who's been rocking as long as Durst is. Our knees start getting fucked up and all that sort of thing. But I'll never forget him and Hydra roll up 3 hours later, because I've been going and done pep talks and stopped my outline and going and got food and lunch, all this other sort of shit. 3 hours later, this motherfucker's done. He's done. He's looking for other spots, but he's going back up onto the roof, just allowed to chill for a second. And I'm using iron lac, because I had iron lac sent down there ahead of time. You can't travel with aerosol on the plane. And the bottom of the iron lac can is bulging out.
Yeah,
it won't paint anymore, and it's bulging out for the audience to have perspective. Imagine the bottom of a can that you can normally sit upright, but it begins to bulge out to the extent that the can won't even stand up anymore. It falls over like this. Well, I imagine that it had to do something with the temperature and air pressure, because it started to literally bubble out the steel of the can. The can, you can see the metal push out this way, and the can stopped working. And I remember this has happened to like my third or fourth can by this time. And remember, everything's on the line for me on this piece that I'm doing. No one else does it, but I know it in my head. And I remember being like, God damn it. And Durst, who I don't know, looking down from the roof and being like, we had just met, and he looked through my little book of Iowa shit. He was like, what kind of writers are from Iowa earlier? That's the only exchange we had. So he's heard me go on and on and on about this can fucking up, because it's the third or fourth one. Now I'm running out of colors. As a graph writer, you're supposed to be resourceful. So if you're out in the field and you run out of a particular can, that's your fault. That's nobody else's fault. You got to figure out how to make the piece still work with the colors you got remaining, right? But iron lac was fucking me over, because it wasn't just one can, it was two. It wasn't two, it was 3, it was 4. And I'm out of state. Yeah. Right? So this is the pack that I had sent for me. So he hears me complaining, and it was the most simplest exchange ever. He just leans, I just see his head lean over the edge of the roof, and he's like, man, what's going on? I was like, man, this fucking can. He's like, what's wrong with it? I was like, man, this bitch won't work no more, man. It's like the air pressure's built up in it or something. He was like, well, don't use it. I was like, okay, rocket science advice, man. But at the same time, in retrospect, it was the best advice. It was like, dude, if it ain't working, stop stressing over it. Move on. Even if you're at a deficit and now you only have 1 or 2 cans to figure something out with, that's where you're at. Stop stressing off that shit. And in that podcast, if anyone ever checks out that episode, they will hear that story. They hear me and him laughing about it, because that set the tone for me. But when you talk about iron lac fucking up on you, that's not the first time it happened. And those cans, when they bubble out like that, they never ever work again. No,
they don't.
I will not let you also slander our flame blue cans. In the same fashion. But go ahead.
You know what? I won't talk shit on flame blue, but I'll tell you now. Iron lac lost all my business, and when I started getting into it, I was buying. There was times I was getting 100 cans delivered to my house, and for someone just starting out and doing that, I was like really upset, because it's like, that's my investment in myself to put something out, and I was like, man, I got like 20 cans that just won't fucking work, and so I like, and their response was just like horrible, like, turn it upside down, put it in the fridge. I was like, that's the worst. That's the worst thing to say. Put it in the fridge.
I've heard we often do the first idea. If a can is clogged, we shake it up, and then we turn it upside down and try to hit it and see if like there's some sort of issue there. So that I'm familiar with. I've never heard anybody say put it in the fridge.
I thought they were fucking with me, and I still think they were. Like, you know what? Because aren't they like an Australian company too? I think they're Australian.
I feel it's possible. So who are you talking about? Flame? Okay, so hold on. So that goes back to the speculation we was on, because I thought that Flame was the economy line of Molotov, just under a different name. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong, but I thought that was the case.
You know what? I'm gonna research that myself, because I've had issues with Molotov cans, but it might be 1 in, say, 100.
Right. Right.
Their cans are good. Same with 94. I really like 94, particularly when I was doing. I like to me the pressure was perfect for doing like when I was doing a lot of stencil work, which I have really moved away from. Everything's all like for the most part freehand now, and
that's the way. Hey, but here, so hold on. So I did want to say this just for any of our younger listeners, because you did ask about the type of cans we were using. So for color codes, it was important for us to have some sort of can that had a dual valve pressure system. For those that are unaware, that simply means that depending on the pressure that the writer applies to the can nozzle, you can either get it's pressure sensitive like a piano. So if you press it softly, you can get a soft spray. Press it hard, you get a harder spray. Dual valve pressure system. That's what that's known as. Rusto doesn't have a dual valve pressure system. So Rust-Oleum, which we refer to as Rusto, which you get at Home Depot, Menards, all that sort of thing, you press it once, you're on the gas. Yeah. Period. Now, someone who is real dope with the can, who has proper can control, they can still get variation between that. They can still get as fat as this line will allow, as a tip will allow, and they can still narrow it down and get to a razor point with that. So there is still some variation that someone can get with a Rusto can, but the difference is really in the guts of it. So, but the reason I want to make a point is simply to say this: I recommend that people that are first starting out, no, by all means, work with the cheap cans. Rusto, I would prefer Rusto if I'm hitting the train. If we're killing steel, you want an oil-based, heavy, lasting power paint, and Rusto is good for that. The only thing is, some people who aren't used to it, their finger, the little stabilizer muscles that are in the finger that people don't normally work out until they've been painting for a while, Rusto can be hard on that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I would actually recommend to newer writers, do not shun Rusto. Do not shun these cheaper brands. Don't think you're bigger and above all that. You don't want to go learn with $10 cans.
No, absolutely not.
I started to do that at one point, and someone had to pull my coat to it. And it was like, dude, while you're still learning, why would you learn at $10 a pop?
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
The thing that I love Rusto's colors. Like they have a lot of I think variations of what like the Montanas use and stuff like that. But what I don't like their caps. I don't like their caps because I've actually had it where if I use it too long at one time, it clogs on me too. But that could also be a user error where I could be pushing down too far or too hard. With
Bob, are you shaking your cans?
I always shake my can.
Are you keeping your cans shook up the entire time?
Oh man, I always shake my cans. I mean, I'm not doing it for like 2 minutes, but I mean.
But on that tip though, man, even to this day, if we'll use Rusto in a project or a piece, you know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure that any younger writers listening out there, but you've been painting for a while now, but any younger writers, it's very easy for them to look right to the upscale designer shit and just be like, oh, well, I'm not a real graffiti writer unless I get the graffiti writing starter pack, which means I got to be playing with my pen, I got to be doing all this. Honestly, the illest writer can do the most with the least.
I agree with you on that. Now, what's your take on Krylon? Because from my memory back in probably early 90s, Krylon has definitely changed, and they changed their tip to where it's almost like a calligraphy cap now.
Yeah. So what I would say about Krylon is Krylon somehow managed to, from a mainstream perspective, I don't know if it's because people saw him using it. I don't know, because really even in, I think in Star Wars, Scene may have been breaking down the fact that Rusto covers better than Krylon. But where I was going to go and what I was going to say on it was, somehow Krylon, from a mainstream perspective, got into the mindset of people when they thought about graffiti, especially in the 80s, late 70s and 80s, they talked about Krylon, that's what they would mention.
Yeah.
But most writers I knew knew that Krylon had a lot of dope colors, you know, the bubble gum, the watermelon, all that sort of shit. The colors were dope, but at the end of the day, it didn't cover well. Krylon was always more watery.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You would need 3 coats of Krylon to do what you could do with 1 coat of Rusto.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, again, my memory could be foggy, but I believe it's Seam who stated that, and I believe Seam may have stated it on Star Wars, but you don't have to take his fucking word for it or my word for it. Anybody can just go out and use those cans. Now, I remember early 2000s, Rusto still had, if you were to go to like a Walmart, both Rusto and Krylon still have the regular small caps that look like any regular cap that comes on like a...
it looks like a New York fat cap, right?
Yeah. And you can remove those off both of them and, you know, put whatever cap on there. If it was a Euro cap, it wasn't going to last very long before it started spattering and all that sort of thing. At that time, I knew people who would still use both of them interchangeably. Me, the crew I came up with, we were very partial to Rusto. We were big on Rusto. Shortly after that is when what you're talking about happened. I remembering that cap for Rusto was removed and they put on what I refer to as the Painter's Touch gloss cap. Got a song called Shovel Kids back in the day where we talked about that. There was a time frame where that cap got put on the Rusto can. When that happened, and for anyone who goes to Home Depot or Menards right now, you go to the section and you see Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch. There's just different colors and stuff in the Painter's Touch section. That cap is the one I'm referring to. When that cap got put on that can, it actually made it tougher to bury shit because it changed it from being a female top to a male top. Exactly,
yeah, because like I just had my neighbor ask me, hey, do you have a bright colored paint for my garage? I need something real quick. And I was like, let me see if I have a cap. And he gave me the can, and I was like, well, you have a female. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, it has a hole in it, man. Like it's the female. Like I have all male caps. Like I was like, and it's just the cap was female, so it wasn't gonna work for me.
Yeah, it wasn't gonna work. Whatever it was, it wasn't.
Yeah.
So at the time that happened with Rusto, shortly therearound, I remember there being this big thing about Krylon was basically trying to conform to. It wasn't anti-graffiti legislation, but there was just a lot of lobbying and pushing for them to not make their paint design so accessible to vandals. We are graphiters are vandals, right? And so when that happened, they put on the cap that you're talking about, which is that red cap, which has that little white thing on it, and now the spray comes out like a cone, like this, and it's very inconsistent. And you would not want to use it for any super detail work. So both of those cans, both Rust-Oleum and Krylon, went through an evolution at that point in time where they came out with those different cap types. The difference is, at this point, Rusto, even though it has switched from female to male can, nowadays graphiters have come up with all sorts of adapters. I don't like those.
See, I like those adapters. I've actually used them because like I wanted a color from Rusto for a piece I was doing, and I was like, I'll just get the $2-3 adapter, and it worked fine up until a certain point. Like, and I get like it's a hack for a solution, like temporarily.
Yeah, dog. Honestly, that's why I ended up just teaching myself to use the stock cap, and to this day I prefer the stock just because it doesn't have those issues and that sort of thing. So no, I don't like that. I don't like the adapters because all of a sudden the height that your finger sits at goes from here to being right here.
Yeah.
Still having the same grip. Ergonomically, that's different.
Well,
as silly as it sounds, to get into that nuance, I'm into that type of shit.
Well, it also goes with muscle memory. You're used to being from like right here, and next thing you know, you're like up here trying to squeeze down, and the pressure is different. Yeah. So how? I'm kind of gonna switch it up a little bit. What do you prefer doing? I mean, because like you're so like, and I'm saying this as a huge compliment, and it's inspiring to me, where you're so talented with the paint, but then you get on the mic and you're also nice. Like to me, it's like you have you're like Spider-Man and Batman, like together. You know, like you got all this great fucking talent, and it's like I wish I was able to be that multi-talented.
What's the so MCing was my first love. You know, I actually haven't been writing. I've been writing graffiti for I think 13 years now, breaking for 14 years. That's long for someone who hasn't been rocking that long, but it's not long considering just how much I've been involved in hip hop and how old I am.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually get into graff until mid-20s. And I remember getting into it at a time where, you know, people were asking like, well, why would you do that? Or why are you up late at night and write your name over and over and over 3,000 times, going out at 2 a.m., and get chased out of yards by dogs and all this sort of thing? Like, what is that worth? Now it's worth a lot because, I mean, shit, even in the corporate business places that I've worked in and stuff, like they're now commissioning us to do murals there. We've leveraged it into other functions and that sort of thing. So there was a payoff from it. But that came later. I have been rocking for about 20 years when it comes to MCing. So that's the first love. I think I'll always be, I see myself as better at that and inherently just at a higher level MCing wise than graffiti wise. I love them both. I study them both. But there's so much graff that I see out there. I'm like, God damn, I don't even know how the person did this thing or that thing. I don't run into that so much with rap.
Yeah.
I don't run into so much where I'm like, whoa, I don't know how it's possible to do A, B, and C. I feel just about capable of seeing and of doing anything that I've heard rock. But when you ask me which one I prefer, I would tell you this. So for a while, I had turned down doing workshops and stuff. I'll tell you this quick little thing. I turned down doing workshops for a while. People in the city had been asking about me doing like rap workshops and things like that. And I was always opposed to it because to me, the way I came up in rhyming, you had to struggle for it. You know what I'm saying? Little Billy didn't just get signed up by the soccer mom to get sit in the back of your class just because she don't want to deal with him. So you basically end up babysitting this cat, you know what I'm saying, and teaching him all this shit. That's not how you got dope at MCing. And so I was always opposed to it. I was actually always even opposed to that from a graff standpoint until I went to Denver in, I think it was 2013. Shout out to Dread and ICR crew, and shout out to my man Main Rock and Stay Tuned crew as well. What happened was, again, having been on tour, that's what I mean about the music leveraging every other experience that came from that, graffiti and whatnot. We had been on tour in 2012. One of the tour stops was Denver. Long story short, we ended up playing there with, Maker 12, Illogic, Blockhead had been out there. And it was a huge graffiti event called Colorado Crush. I remember coming back the following year and actually getting a chance to paint on the wall for the first time. The one thing I remember looking around and seeing were a lot of different writers with a lot of different backgrounds. Some had the illegal background. Some had learned in a classroom kind of setting. Some had just really been bedroom artists and all that sort of thing. And there had been a point in time up until then where I would have frowned upon anything other than you learning out the rugged way in the street late at night, period. And I remember it was one of the first few times I'd gotten to paint in daylight outside and not have to worry about every time I hear a twig snap, damn, I may have to run and that sort of thing. I just remember smelling the fresh air, people passing around herb. The vibe was just so good. And I remember for the first time ever, I looked around and I said, because this is in Denver, I'm painting downtown, right? And I remember thinking about my home city of Des Moines, and I remember saying, dude, do I really care? If we have the opportunity to have young people, up-and-comers in our city be just as dope as some of these heads that I'm seeing around here, do I really give a fuck how they came into that? Do I care that not every single one of them was bleeding and maybe had to escape jail or had to run from a dog or stole their paint, all this other shit? Do I really care about that, or do I just care about the creativity flowing and growing and that sort of thing? And then the second thing I said was, well, if you Phate, are one of the people in the city who can impart that knowledge to some people, why would you not do it and still be the person that talks shit about the younger generation?
Yeah.
And we do a lot of that, particularly in hip hop. We do a lot of like, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do that. But there's not so many people that are willing to impart the knowledge to the people so they know how to do it. Mm-hmm. So that is where I made the change to when I came back to Des Moines, I said, you know what? I'm going to put together these events. It's going to be low cost so that even somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, they can get exposed to it, all that sort of thing. And now when they come knocking, I will be down to try to teach a little bit that I know, continue to be a student myself as I help someone else. And dude, that is what helped change my mindset. And it made me feel okay about teaching graph writing, where I didn't feel comfortable teaching MC. To this day, I just have a different vampiric sort of mindset. Like I don't like the notion of new MC. I got people in my crew that like they're starting to rap and they try to send me their shit and I'm like, dude, I don't want to hear anybody do shit, dude. You know, I want to devour an MC. I don't want to hear motherfucking beat coming. You know, so my mindset when it comes to MCing and graph is two totally different things. But I went on this long-winded rant to simply say to you in response to your question. I love doing them both. Graffiti writing is probably more relaxing for me, more therapeutic for me. MCing does something different for me when I get up on the stage, when I control the crowd, when I rock. That does something different for me. Putting out an album or putting it out on wax does something different. But I can say when it comes to teaching and sharing this stuff, graffiti would be much easier for me. That's easier to do. And I remember often, dude, I'll get off because I got a 9 to 5, right? So I get out of my 9 to 5 job, Doug, and I'll leave there early and have it arranged so that I can go to the venue for where I'll be teaching kids that are coming from different public schools here in the city. Sometimes I get there and I have such a good rapport with the kids that I'll be like, dude, I don't even feel like seeing y'all little motherfuckers. But while that is an honest and sincere statement at that time, you know, you may have been up late the night before, you got general life going on, but one thing I can always say to you is by the time the class starts and the energy is flowing and these young heads, I can see their desire and their passion coming into alignment and their progression coming to alignment. By the time the class is over, I'm always glad I was there every day. Yeah. Even if when I first showed up, I didn't feel like it. I cannot say that would also be the case with MCing.
Well, I
apologize for the long answer, but
no. It was very insightful. I think MCing is hard to teach. Like I think you can, and I'm very unknowledgeable to music and making music, but I think you can't teach somebody what to say. You can, I guess, say you got 16 bars, hook, 16 bars, hook, but other than that, like, I don't, like, people have delivery. You have your own style of how you flow. You can't teach that. At least from my perspective, as someone who, I love hip-hop so much. Like, I listen to a lot of it from, like, and hearing stuff from, like, the 80s to now. I can tell you now, like, the people that were rocking in the 90s, 2000s, and some of the 80s, I still listen to now. I can't get into this new stuff. And I'm not trying to trash it, but I look for lyrics, and that's what I like. To me, because lyrics paint a picture, and I'm a visual person. If what you're spitting can literally paint a picture to me, I think you're an amazing MC. I really do. And your album has done that. I literally ordered your album on vinyl, and I don't even have a record player.
Hey, the funny thing about that, that's exactly what we wanted. I remember at a point, someone was like, so you guys doing CDs and this now? I was like, no, it's exclusively vinyl this time out. Get the vinyl and you'll get a digital link and all that other sort of thing. But at the end of the day, dude, this is all about proliferating the culture, pushing and perpetuating the whole thing of, dude, let's take it back to the essence. So it was dope to hear that because you're not the only one that said that. Yeah. It's been like, I went out and got a record player just so I could play that joint. Well, hey,
yeah.
that's all. Get a form, young man.
Yeah, for the artists that I really enjoy, I'll buy their vinyl. I will, just because it's like the artwork on a vinyl, especially like the album cover, it always comes off better than on a CD or on an iTunes picture. And to me, like, just because I don't have a record player, I could still frame that and put that up as a piece of art. And you did your album cover.
We gotta get you. All right, so I'm assuming you're talking about Closed Doors to an Open Mind?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the solo album that came out 2015, I think.
Wait. Hold on. I should have went in my closet. I keep it stored upstairs. Yeah. Closed Doors to an Open Mind. That's the one where it's in black and white.
Yeah, just for the listeners who aren't aware.
Yeah.
So for the listeners who aren't aware, so I'm part of my original, like I said, First Love is a group called Maxilla Blue. I'm the sole Emcee from that crew. DJ Touch Nice is the sole DJ, and Aeon Gray is the sole producer from that crew. Any other combination of people, we don't refer to it as Maxilla. Maxilla Blue came out with 3 different albums. You can find Volume 2 on vinyl still. Everything else you'd have to get digitally. Volume 3 we actually sold out of. After that, Closed Doors to an Open Mind was the solo album that I dropped, produced by Maker on Galapagos Food, maker of Quell and Maker Lore. So that's the one Bob was referring to. But Durty was hollering at me on Instagram not too long ago. He's like, man, the art is cool, man. It's all right. You're doing okay. You're trying to figure things out. But the music is what we need from you, Phate. And I remember asking him, like, okay, dude, well, do you have the new Main Dudes album? The Main Dudes was the album that we dropped. It was myself and a new MC named Fenimore. We dropped it also on G4 last year. This is a totally different vibe. It is way more grimier. I want to warn all my fans that are used to the slick finesse of Phate. This gets into the dark and dirty type action of things.
What? How haven't I seen this?
This is where you've seen it. Because the name of the album is Bloodied Up Conclusion, and we got the ghost, the transparent white vinyl with the blood splatters all over it. Don't play with me.
That looks so good.
I call it the ghost vinyl, so I'll make sure to get you a copy of that. Because clearly you're behind, sir.
You know what? I am. It's hard to keep up with everything because, like, I've befriended so many talented people, and everybody's always putting something out, and it's like, I want to cop everything, and I try. I honestly try to. I do, and like I love listening to your albums. And
here's the crazy thing. That was out last year. This weekend, I travel here to record the last 2 songs for a new vinyl LP that I released this year, and the EP is actually going to drop within the next month. So like, I'm on it for you, sir. I didn't slack off it.
Well, here is when you have something dropping, let me know, because like the algorithm in everything is, I think, hurting so many people because it's. I tend to skip and not see things, not intentionally, but like I get so overloaded with the toxicity on Facebook where I just scroll and like if I see something that says Trump, I got to get away from it. Like I'm like I can't see it, and I'm not saying like the toxicity towards him, but the toxicity coming from them, and I'm just like please like people, like, stop promoting this fucking asshole. And in the hindsight of everything that is going on, where with Black Lives Matter and so many names that we got to add to of young black men and women getting killed, like it just bothers me anytime I see this. And I'm trying to tie this into here, and it might have been a bad segue of doing that. How do you talk to your daughter about this stuff? Because I have difficulty explaining it to an inquiring mind of a 5-year-old daughter, a white daughter, and it made me think, like, how does somebody talk to their child that is a person of color, explain this of the horrific things that happen, and as you do that, and I'll let you answer, but you always spin off things in a positive way. You are, I take you as a positive person, and very influential, and just what's that?
I said I'll take that.
Yeah, like I take you as someone.
Hey, a couple of heads from some rival graffiti crews may not think the same, but I'm down with it.
Yeah, I take you as like you put off truth, but with a positive twist to it, you know. So like,
what I will say, dude, is there. I was kind of joking right there. Ultimately, I do want to be. I think most of us with a good head on our shoulders, want to give more to the world than we take from it. We want to try to leave things in a better position than we found, and that sort of thing, as hard as that may be. And so, yeah, generally speaking, if I think through an issue or I try to give commentary on an issue, it's usually not with the ultimate objective being just to spite someone or just to prove a point that puts somebody in their place, but hopefully so like there's some greater understanding, even if it's just from myself. That being said, and to get to your question, I think when you're dealing with young people, it's important to meet them where they're at. And in some instances, you do want to, as you're above them and you're sort of holding a carrot of knowledge or something for them to strive for, that's important, but I think we can't get out ahead of the cart too often. And so what I actually mean by that is sometimes people think they're doing the right thing by proactively saying as much as they can as a kid at a very early age about, hey, this is how things are. This is the way this is. This is going on this long. People have suffered this way, and blah, 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 blah. And they may be doing it at a time where the kid is not yet, they're speaking in terms of a certain level of curiosity, but that doesn't mean they're ready to have the whole kit and caboodle delivered to them in that fashion with the parents' ideology embedded in it, right? And so usually what I like to wait for is, just like with class stuff, is as opposed to me going and pushing all of my style and my perspective and stuff on the kid, mine included, I'm waiting for the kid to come to me, and now the kid has questions about A, B, and C. Well, now let's explore A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. And now let's talk about the history of A, B, and C. And I'll leave it there. And when you come to me and you ask about D, E, and F, now let's explore that together. And let's know and acknowledge that as we're exploring it together, I, as the elder, even could find out I'm learning something new. We're learning something together. That's easier to do when we go with that approach. What I think sometimes people do too often on any side of the coin, no matter if you're black, white, or whatever, is we indoctrinate our kids. So before the kid is asking questions that we are now exploring together, we're proactively telling the kid, hey, this is how to think about this. Yeah. These people are this. These people are that, right? Mm-hmm. And so now their worldview is starting to shape in a way that they may not even be fully matured enough to do it properly. Mm-hmm. So now when they get other whack influences that don't have the best intentions as the parents, now it warps that view a little bit more. Now it's towards the extreme end or this spectrum or that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just not seasoned properly. It's like trying to throw all the seasoning into a dish the moment you turn a pan on. Tim, you got to cook it a little bit.
Yeah,
you got to let the meat ask you for the seasoning. You know what I'm saying?
Well, like...
And so I think that helps, dude. And so I say that because you say you have a daughter, she's not of color. When she comes and she asks for the first time and her black friend, and she didn't even really think of the friend as black, but now someone's mentioning it, they think, well, now that's the time to talk about, there's differences, we have different cultures, and there's blah, 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 there's all that sort of thing.
Yeah, because
it might, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Like what we're doing, because we, the church that we go to is very multicultural. There's, it is black and white. It really is. And we try not describing someone at church as being a color. We try it as a size, like, oh, well, Mr. Thomas has a bald head and he plays the piano. but we're not saying that he's black. Like we want her to see the people, or our kids to see the people who they are. Not necessarily. I'm not saying ignore the color, but I don't want that to be the first thing that they be like, oh, that's my black friend. I want them to be like, well, Mr. Thomas is an amazing pianist. He plays all these instruments, but am I getting like I'm trying to say that? Like,
no, I totally get it. And further, I would actually say it's funny because there's a challenge. No matter where someone sits in this whole discussion of things, there's a challenge on all different sides, and the challenge just takes on different faces. And what I often say, I actually just what is today? Today is Sunday, July 12th. 13th. We have an episode tomorrow where I sat down with a white teacher from the Des Moines Public Schools on Worst Things First podcast. And she teaches many units on things like activism, immigrant rights, LGBTQ rights, rape culture, prison to pipeline, school to prison pipeline, Black Power rights, feminist movement. This is something that goes on the Des Moines Public Schools, and she's embedded in that. And so I was talking to her about, sometimes people of color can even have trouble realizing the challenge that is being navigated by someone who's not of color, who's actually trying to be an ally and is trying to be fair-minded and all that sort of thing. So everything you're saying makes perfect sense to me because on one hand, absolutely, you want your kids to think first of their friends as friends and describe them as characters and all other attributes before jumping to this color or that color. But at the same time, it's a tough thing for people to navigate to hear that, if they say something like, I'm colorblind, I don't see color, well, that's actually a problem too.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? And so I try to sometimes explain to my friends of color, like, dude, understand the position we're putting people in there. Some of us don't like to be called African American. Some of us don't like to be called black. None of us like to be called color. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, how the fuck they gonna remember all this sort of shit? We gotta have a little bit of leeway and understanding and shit, right? But I know what you mean because on one hand, they should be able to name to describe someone using anything other than color. But at the same time, we should actually be in a society where it's okay to say, my man Bob, white dude with the head, he got the hat, blah blah blah, whatever. Because it's an easy characteristic and attribute by which to describe it. We can't force people to tiptoe around things just because there's been some pain attached to some other aspect of the thing.
I think it's also how you say, how somebody would say it too. You know what I mean? Like if you'd be like this, my man Bob, the white dude. Yeah, you're
right. You're right, and that's what I meant earlier when I said when we too early proactively try to teach a kid how to be on a particular subject, mind may already be at a point where they understand the words we're saying.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they now have the articulative finesse to say it to their friend in the right way, to describe their friend the right way. See what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so many things that need to mature, so that to me it's like, I wait to find out where a kid is at so I know where to meet them at with the amount of knowledge and information and the amount of stage setting. And by stage setting, I mean just creating that space where it's like, I'm letting them know, look, I don't have all the answers either. If we did, we would already be past this issue and would need to be explained. Since I don't, let's learn together.
Yeah.
That is the stage we're on.
And
you know that things may come on their head.
Yeah,
you may pull this thing and now it gets amended or you learn more. Be aware of that. Prepare for that. Don't be so rigid in our understanding of things that when someone comes along with an idea that conflicts with it, they're now an enemy instead of someone we're having discourse with.
Yeah, because what we're really trying to embed and teach our kids, just because and I'll use Christmas as an example. We celebrate Christmas because that's the Christian thing to do, I guess. But there's Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa, like there's different variations of the celebration of that holiday, and that's and I could actually be wrong on that though, but it's different holidays that are around the same time. And so like we have a book for the kids. It's Q is for Kwanzaa, and I think H is for Hanukkah. So it's like we we have people in place also. My sister-in-law is Jewish, and so she talks to the kids about Hanukkah and stuff like that. And then I have a friend that actually celebrates Kwanzaa, and it's like I want them to see like not every holiday is the same, and it's different amongst all kinds of people.
Yeah.
The hardest thing that I've had to explain to a 5-year-old is what, like, she's watching me watch the protests as she's watching. It's called T-Rex Ranch on YouTube on our TV. Yeah. I'm trying to keep up to date on protests and see what's happening and explain to her why people are in the streets angry, you know, and stuff. And it's a wild time that we live in, and it's like I don't want to say the wrong thing based on my emotion that makes her see someone different in the future. Like I don't want like regardless of my experiences and stories that I've heard from friends of mine about cops, I don't want her to think that she can't go to a cop for help because they're like, I'm trying not to. I want her to formulate her own opinion on stuff like that, and really in hopes that there are good people out there. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely know, dude. That's the thing. I trust me. And I think you know, it goes back to the old Bruce Lee thing. You know, be like water. Be like water. Water can take the shape of any container. You know what I'm saying? And I think the more people are like that, as they put themselves in a position to communicate with people with differences, the more likely an understanding can be reached. When we have too rigidly set up the understanding and construct of exactly what we are going to take as an answer, what we won't take as an answer, and where we stand, well, that hard structure running into another person's hard structure is only going to create hard, tough friction. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes somebody has to be water and mold around the thing, mold into it. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And unfortunately, what that really takes is everybody being that. It's like, you know that feeling when you are, it's you and another person walking towards a door at like grocery store or whatever, and you both arrive to it at about the same time, and both of you move to open the door for the other person.
Yeah.
It is awkward for a second, but over and above, it's a decent feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way better feeling than when you hold the door open for someone, they go in, they don't even say shit to you.
Yeah.
It's a way better feeling than when someone else just goes in and as you're walking up and thinking they're going to hold the door, they don't, it closes in your face.
Yeah.
So the awkwardness that comes along with both of us being poised to be, pardon me, after you, sir.
Yeah.
That position most of us should be in from a communication standpoint. We should be in a communicative standpoint, ready to say to someone, you know what, let me hold off on going so hard on my stance or my opinion just yet, because there may be something about yours that I haven't quite figured out. You go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
But you're not set to do that.
No, and that's the problem. I think not with the current state right now, but just in general. Nobody wants to listen to the opposite side. Like, and there's a ton of things that I'm against, but I'm open to hear their reasoning. Not to change my mind on a stance against, say, hate, racism, and stuff like that, but I want to hear where they're coming from to basically be like, okay, well, they were taught that or they experienced something, but regardless of that, I think anything that is promoting hate is wrong. That's me.
It's just like the graff shit. It's just like how we started off this combo, where you were like, well, damn, dude, now that I know some of the concerns that a graff writer might be going through, I could understand why dude may have cold-shouldered after I was like, take me out and paint me.
Yeah.
I'll learn that.
Yeah, I mean, I love to be, I'm more of a student to a lot of people than I am a teacher, I think, at times. And I think for me to become a teacher at things, I have to take time and be that student. And it's like to swing it back into art, I've messaged you on things and you'd be like, oh, try this. And we've had like small little conversations based on like can control, and everything that you've said to me is it sticks with me, because it's like I'm learning like from you, from your experiences, that you're, I guess, generous enough to give me that advice, and I think moving forward, that's what people need to do in all of society, and like it's never gonna be perfect. It's never gonna be perfect because like where I come from, I got that one uncle that no matter what will always find a racist joke funny and will always want to say something to get a laugh. But behind that joke, there's some truth to it, and I hate that. And it's hard raising kids right now, and that's why it's like for me to explain. And I'm kind of rambling, and I apologize, but for me to talk to my kids about this, it just breaks my heart that somebody that is of color is going to have that same talk, but through experience. And and I hate that, like to no end.
I would just say, man, like I say though, it's me when I say meet them where they're at. What I really mean is don't let our call to action be the immediate call to action for kids who are too young for that stage of things. And it could be a situation where like we're responding to the kid when they're like, well, why are they mad? Why are they crying? Why are they upset? It could be a thing of, I don't know, but do you think that we should maybe hear them out and see why they're upset? Give them a chance to talk about it, listen to them and see if we agree. The convo could potentially end there. And then later when the kid is now, they have a different set of ears and a different set of understanding. And now they're ready to get on the topic of, hey, we were learning in school, this and that, whatever. It sounds like the thing we were looking at on TV that one day, 2 years ago, Dad. Now can we talk about, well, now maybe it's time to have that combo. And I think too often, we all, like right now, this is a period of time where a lot of people are really feeling like, oh shit, this is my call to action. Well, cool, but just because you're going off to war doesn't mean you bundle up the baby and put him in a flak jacket, put a helmet on his head, and it's like, nigga, you going to war too.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no, he can hear your stories when you get back from deployment, and he can decide whether or not he's going to do that same thing later with his experience if he has paired with what you give him. But it's a funny thing.
Yeah, like my wife and I were just talking about this the other night, where how to explain to the kids certain things, not just about racism and stuff like that, because their attention span is like so short.
Yeah.
Where you kind of have to put it in simple terms and in blocks so that they understand it. And like she's really good at that. Me, I'm like, well, here's the truth, here's this. So I'm learning from my wife on how to do things better. I mean, she's a way better parent than I am.
And just think about it. So why would any of us rush if we were? Because you're right. With kids, you have to put them in like simple terms and stuff. Well, if we're talking about one of the most complex issues on the face of the planet, why would we rush to get into that if we're gonna be? And if we're at a point where we have to be limited to this simplicity,
right?
Maybe we eat a little bit of that, they get that, and later on we feed them a little bit more, they get that, and later we feed them a little bit more, and before you know it, they now start bringing ideas to the table and they're feeding us.
Yeah. And
that's why having set the stage to say, all right, see how I told you we were going to be on a journey of learning together? Yeah. Now we're in it. Buckle up.
See, I learned my lesson, and this is kind of funny. My daughter has a lot of questions now as she's getting older, man, and I love it. So she's like, well, where do I come from? And I'm like, well, you're Polish, you're Irish, you're German, and you're also Italian. And she's like, but how did I get out of mommy's belly? I'm like,
cut them shape, man.
Yeah. So like, and I'm at work, or my wife's at work, and I'm trying to avoid this birds and bees talk. Like, so like she wants to know how she got into mommy's belly to how she came out. Wow. And I'm like, I'm trying to dance around it. And I was like, well, mommy and daddy love God and all this stuff. And as it came down to it, I was just like, made sex. And I was like, I ended the conversation because like, I can't do it. So like that, like to me, I need that motherly approach with my wife to soften the I guess the issue for me. Like, I have a hard time talking to my daughter about sex. Like, that's just me.
Yeah, so mine's 17 now, dude. I definitely have that. I definitely still have to come to terms with how short the shorts are these days when people wear them out. I'm ready to be like, yo, what are you doing? You go to the beach? Why you got those shorts on?
Yeah.
And then it's my wife and them, and I'm like, they're like, Brandon, like, no, this is how short shorts are. And then I'm looking around at other people that are walking around and stuff. I'm like, damn, I guess they're right. I guess I got to chill out a little bit. But as a dad, I think having a daughter is one of the best things that could ever happen.
Oh, you're absolutely right, man. And I apologize for cutting you off, but having a daughter is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It has taught me to what I thought I was being respectful and appreciating woman. It's taken it to another level. When I want to become or get into that misogynistic thing, it's like, would I want someone to be like that to my daughter?
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh shit! Like, it's humbled me to no extent. And as much as I love my son, I think every man deserves that love of a daughter. That's just me, though. It's a whole different love. It is.
Yeah, it's yeah. I would say the best thing to me is just that it tempered any lack of maturity. Excuse me. And to your point, it makes you want to be the type of man. If your daughter, if our daughters are to end up with men, it makes you want to be the type of man that they would end up with. And you start to realize the simple logic of, how could I sit around her and tell her, hey, don't be with a man that doesn't put his hands on you, or that puts his hands on you. Don't be with a man that gets super jealous and does this, or treats you this way, or gets upset when you hang with your friends. It's a bad sign. It's a sign of all these things. How could I say all of that if I was being that?
Exactly.
And so it establishes some accountability for you, which I love. You know,
like in the position that I'm in, like I have one of each brand. I got the boy, I got the girl. So now, like, my actions are leading to what my daughter expects as having. If that's who she falls in love with, is I'm setting the precedence of a man to her on how I treat my wife, how I treat her, and then I'm setting it for my son on how to treat women and how, like, what to do. So it's like, it catches me at a place where I need to check myself at times and be a better person myself.
No doubt. But check this out. That goes back to where I was saying about when I say meet them where they're at. I never wanted to lie to my daughter, right? And so when she comes and asks me about certain things, I want to be as honest as possible. You know, what I wouldn't do is tell the old stories of, if you smoke weed, you might go and kill someone, you go crazy, and you kill someone, you do this, that, whatever. It was important to me when she was 15, 16, and comes asking that question, for me to be honest and be like, look, man, the first time you may not even get high, you probably cuff your lungs out, may hurt your throat or whatever, but if you ever get to work, you might like it.
Yeah.
You might like it, right?
There's no harm in that.
And so then, fortunately, we were able to, there's a lot about the plant and the study of that we could get into that lets her know it's different from other things. But even with harder shit, dude, this is the toughest ever conversation to have. But even with harder stuff, I'll just throw an example out there. She was asking about cocaine at one point. And I was like, look, dude, here's the simple truth of it. I'd be lying to you if I said that compared to things like heroin, if you were ever to try it one time, you're probably going to KO, and that's going to be the end of the story. It could happen. I want you to know that, but I'm also smart enough and I have enough respect for your intellect. I'm not going to try to scare you into this idea of, don't ever do that because this will happen.
Reefer madness.
It's the first, right, because the first time it doesn't happen and she's out with friends, now I'm a liar.
Yep.
Now, if you can't trust what I say, what else can't be trusted?
Exactly.
Right? And so instead, I'll be like, look, dude, because of how these things, you're into science, right? She's like, yeah, I'm into science. You know about neurotransmitters, right? Yeah, I know about neurotransmitters. Name some for me. Dopamine, serotonin. Okay, since you know how those work, you know they connect to happiness and all these feelings and all that sort of thing. Just know that when people do this little thing, it drops a little bit of that in their system, and so it feels good. So it's probably going to make you feel good. But here's why I would warn you as a daddy, daughter, is because it's also a thing that dudes use to take advantage of girls.
Mm-hmm.
I see dudes turn girls into coke hands, and then they're stringing them out. They're using them for sex, or using them for this, that, whatever. So will it feel good? Not going to lie to you about that, most likely. But could bad come of it? Not going to lie to you about that either. Boom. Now you're in a position to make a decision, and you can still continue to respect me, and maybe come to me if you make the wrong decision. But if we lie to them up front and set the stage for them to not trust us up front because we're just trying to control. And the reason I went in this direction is because as daddies, and as parents, I'm talking to listeners right now, but as parents, it's easy for us to just say, well, you're going to do this because I say do it, and this is how it works. Boom. But we all know that everyone pokes through that bubble at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody bursts that bubble. So what I want is, when you burst that bubble and you make the mistake of going past the ruling or the principles of dad or mom, that afterwards, when whatever happens, you're able to say, oh, they were honest with me. Oh, now that I am in a predicament, I do want to communicate with them because I can get more honest advice, and maybe I can work on this and get out of this. As opposed to us being the parents of old, where we'll tell a motherfucker a lie just to get them to not do what we don't want them to do, and then just tell them you better not do it, and that's it.
Yeah. See,
then we wonder why they hide shit from them.
Yeah, and that's not what I want. I want them to be able to feel comfortable coming to me to talk to me about anything. That say, all right, Dad, I smoked a joint. This is how I feel. Is if I'm going to have a different perspective of it than my wife, and I can respect that. As disappointed as either one of us would be, I want them to be able to at least be able to feel comfortable coming to me and telling me that they fucked up and made a wrong decision.
Exactly. And you know what? That's the thing about, this ties back, we go full circle to why having a daughter is so great, is because with a lady, you have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. I see it with my wife. She's amazing at communicating and talking with the kids. For when I was working and she wasn't, because of the Rona, she was an amazing teacher and everything like that. And now that the roles have reversed, I'm the substitute teacher that falls for every fucking thing, man. It's ridiculous.
But you know what? Much like the new hand, eventually the substitute teacher can get their own class for real.
Yeah, and that's where it's heading. So it's like I'm doing my best to be that teacher, and I found where I'm not that teacher yet was on May 4th when it was Star Wars Day. Class was canceled because of a holiday. Like that's just, like I got to try to get past that shit. Well, here we've been going for almost 2 hours now.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and I know you said that you had about an hour, so I don't want to keep you from your family and your Sunday. One last question to you, my man.
Yes, sir.
And I ask this of all my guests. Who are your inspirations artistically, and somebody in your position artistically and I guess musically?
Really, it's honestly, it's all crew internal. I'm notorious for people in my crew being like, "Yo, have you seen this new piece such and such did, or this new burn such and such did?" And they'll try to pull up something, and my first response is, "Are they part of Scarce Elements?" They'll be like, "No." I'll be like, "Man, I'm good." You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because it's not as if I don't see some shit. I just said earlier, I see all types of things about how to do it, and I'm blown away, and I'm fascinated by it. But I try not to taint my mind too much with other people's aesthetics and things like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at art for hours and hours on end. I just tend to not do it because the more I look at stuff, the more I want to go paint. The more I want to go paint, I'm just going to get up. I'm just going to go do it. But that being said, again, number one, I don't want that to be misconstrued to sound as if I can't be impressed by other people's work. And that happens all the time. I'm blown away by, humbled by it all the time. That's not a thing. But if I were to ever spend any bit of time where I'm actually like looking and being like, oh, how are we doing that now? Okay, oh, dude, that's how we're rocking portraits now. We're starting with we're starting with black instead of white. Like I know a lot of people keep our portraits and stuff for white. A lot of my crew does it the reverse or whatever. We hold the can a certain way to where you get the hard line to the soft spray in, so it already has an automatic shade to it, black shade to it right out the gate. That way, if you wanted to, when you got done with your black sketch, if you wanted to, you could just be done and just walk away from the joint because it actually looks like some shit done with already has shading to it, all done with one hand.
I gotta come out the Iowa with you.
I'll show you. I'll send you a picture of what I mean.
Yeah.
Where it's done with one can, one entire piece, or one can, one entire character, and it's done one color, but it has shading and everything to it. And so you look at it and you're like, damn, like someone must have really went in there and spent some time on it. But really, it was single stroke every time, single stroke. That technique came from within the crew. I'm not saying no one else was doing it outside of the crew, but that's where I learned it from. That's where I was inspired by. I saw Letter 9-1 doing that. And so I wanted to get better at my characters and stuff, so I started doing that. I saw Russo Rock from Scarce Elements start his fauna and flora, his birds, and the stuff that he does with reptiles and stuff. That made me want to get better at painting animals. Same with Limb 1. So shouts to everybody in the crew, but I would say my own crew, Scarce Elements, they're super big influence on me. And then also, we've got extended family and heads that we fuck with. Arcade Crew, that's Gabe, Rockman, Static Max, those heads, TNR, Parrish, Saba, Durst, Dread, all the heads I paint with, really. All the heads I've gone and spent some time with, and we put some shit on the line for each other. That does serve to inspire me. Musically, same thing. 12, Quasar, Ro, my man XO152, me and Big Vern, who I've got the new LP coming out with here soon. These heads that I surround myself with happen to be the same heads that inspire me, and I think I'm big on that, man. Yeah. That goes back to the whole thing I was saying about color codes, the original intent of that, and people should go out and look up on YouTube, Decoded, The Color of a City. If you do that, it's a short documentary. It's like 13 minutes, and it's on the event that we're talking about.
Yeah, you know what? If you can provide me that link, I'll put it in the description of this. Yeah.
I'll do that. The whole point of that event, you'll hear me say it within that, is I wanted people to feel like they didn't have to go to Chicago or to New York or LA and then come back and say, hey, I saw graffiti for the first time. Here's what it looked like. I wanted people to feel like they could find that here. And so likewise, I've always wanted to be a part of crews where I don't have to go surf on the internet to be inspired. I could be. Yeah. I don't have to. I'm surrounded by someone I'm inspired by. And so, yeah, dude, it's Galapagos 4, G4 crew, Maxilla Blue, the main dude, Scarce Elements, FSC, MOR, Masters of Reality, all of that, all the home team action, everything.
I love that.
That's what I'm inspired by.
I love that. I wish I had more of that, of being inspired by locally, like your homies and stuff like that. Where I have a lot of inspiration from people here, but like for me, it comes from people I've done a lot interaction with. Like I mentioned. And I'm not trying to sit here and just say this, but like when you told me new writer, it like that stuck with me, and that was how many years ago. Like as I'm doing something, I'm new, and I'm not that great at it. It's like I'm new to it. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not good at it because I'm new to it. So I got to keep working at it, and like you're very inspiring to me, and just that like 10, 15-minute conversation we had in my basement, about that stuff, like I paid attention and I listened to you, and I still have the same. I'm looking at it right now. The same little shelving unit that you were writing on.
Dude, check this out. I'll just be straight up with you because I'm always straight up with like that every head I deal with. When someone says something like that, when they say something like, you know, we're all new hands or you're a new hand or a new writer, to me what it does is it allows the person to see the path. Again, you're meeting them where they're at and it allows the person to see the path, but you're not giving them a participation trophy. You're not doing none of that. You're just saying, yo, if you want to go to Mordor and come back with the one ring that rules them all, that's the forest, the evil forest you got to go through. That's the dragon you got to get past. That's all that other shit you got to get past. And so you could have decided new hand, new writer. I'm not going to be that. I don't like the tone of that. I don't like the sound of that. It doesn't fit how I perceive myself. And I could have been talking to you now 2 years removed from that, and now you've given up. You're not new to the writing game. You're nothing to the writing.
Yeah.
You could have done that, but you didn't do that. And so the ball, in other words, the ball was still put in your court. And here's the ill thing about it. When you tell someone you're this, you're new, here's the spectrum, or here's the path, you allow that person, if they are the type of motherfucker to try to go and reach the other side of the path, to do so. And in that comes progress. Just being straight up with you, most of the stuff that I saw from you when you first started out, I wasn't fond of.
Yeah.
Now, over the past couple of years, there's been a few different things. If I ever post on an Instagram thing or like a photo, here's one thing I'm very big on. I never ever like someone's shit or give a comment on someone's shit unless I genuinely think that's dope.
Yeah.
That's fresh. Or that makes me want, like, I wouldn't mind having that somewhere. Or that makes me think of something here or there. So I think a lot of us, we give out, we unknowingly say, oh, good job, or oh, blah, 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 so often that it loses value to us and to that person.
Yeah.
So rest in truth. If I've ever, for that, because I know I've done that to a few of your joints because I didn't really like some recent joints. So if I do that to 2, 3, or 4 different things, know that those 2, 3, or 4 different things I genuinely felt that way about. It would never ever be like, well, me and Bob are friends, we're pretty cool, and I feel good today on a Sunday. I just smoked, so I guess I'll go and like his pick. Fuck that. I'm never ever do that.
I could tell you like that, and to me that's where the genuine like and appreciation of something comes from. Like a lot of people don't understand. You could still be homies with someone, be friends. You could support them, but not like every single thing they do. Because if you do that, you're not really pushing them. If you like something of mine and you comment on it, I walk away being like, oh, Phate dug that. Like I don't get too many of those, which is fine. But it's like when they come, I know it's genuine. I know it's real, and that's what I love. Like you are a very honest person. In a day of age, that's been
in this day and age, it's fading like a motherfucker, but at the same time, it's all we got.
Yeah, it is.
All we got.
I've had people ask me, like, can you share this? And I'll share the painting that I bought off you. And I'm like, I can't do it because I don't get behind it 100%. And it's like, I can't just like something to like it.
Yeah.
It's in being honest is a thing of the past too. And when people hear it, it's the end of the world. But hey, man, you know what? I appreciate you so much on a lot of levels. I've enjoyed every single conversation we've had, like through Messenger, offline, and stuff like that. I think I appreciate the work that you do, what you do with kids with the culture, with and the music you put out. I'm a fan. You got my support, and I appreciate you just taking your time on a Sunday to sit and talk to me about all kinds of bullshit and having a good time.
No doubt, man. Much love. Likewise, man. Mutual respect. That's part of the reason I brought that up, you know, is when you set a path before someone, you give them the opportunity to for you to understand why you should respect them later on. I do, so that's much love, man. All y'all listeners, make sure y'all stay tuned to Durty Talk. You know, and I'm not always gonna have another round of ruffians, perhaps not as rough and tumble as your guy right here on the joint, who may allow him to talk shit about Flame Blue. But shit you'll want to check out here in the future, so y'all make sure y'all tune into this cat right here. Also, though, tune in to WTFP.
That's right.
Come lounge with your boy and hear the type of shit we get into, man. But I had a blast, man. So, much love as always.
Yeah, I had a great time. I actually forgot that we were recording for a time because I just thought we were just kicking it. Like, and that's my whole thing with my podcast is I like to keep it very, very nonchalant, very laid back, and just raw. How like even if you said, you know what, man, fuck you and your art, that would stay in here just because like it's that moment. You know, like I don't edit shit, and I love it, man. I got a lot of love for you, a lot of respect, and I appreciate this. And for all the links, I want to put your podcast on here. For anything you want to go in the description, I'm going to put it in there. Your Facebook, your Instagram. I want everyone to see the art that you do, and particularly I want them to hear the music that you do too, because it's fire. And like it's I rock to it all the time, man. I really do. So, all right, well, go enjoy your family. Do whatever you do, man. Stay creative and stay amazing and be safe, my man.
All right, man. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
You can like and share it too. Show it to your family and every person in your crew. And put that subscribe button to use. Durty Talk, the podcast. Brought to you by my man Bob Fryer, a.k.a. Dirty Art. Check it out.